I just pulled a tumbler barrel off of one of my tumblers. This is a National Geographic tumbler, 3-pound barrel. We got it at a thrift sale for a really good deal. So this is finished stage 3, and then 1 or 2 rounds of borax just to clean them up before they go on to the polish stage. We just use these colanders that are collapsible. We get them at the Dollar Tree here for $1.25, so that's a pretty good deal. I know there's agates in this one, so let's dump it out and see what we have. There's an agate right there on top, but oh yeah. Ooh, look at that. That's fantastic. Holly actually found this one at the bottom of a waterfall in a place we did not expect to find agates. So, yeah, it's super cool. And this bright orange coming through on this side, I was not expecting that at all. So let's get these washed up and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're just gonna pour these in here. Still a little sludgy. We just use a paint can opener to open our tumblers. Just got a standard garden hose. Never put this stuff down your drain. Sometimes when it's just a borax stage, I'll go down the drain, but I try not to. You can see a couple more agates in there. So these are going to go back in borax at least one more day. Probably a full day of borax at least. I like to get the rocks as clean as I can in between grit 3 and grit 4. And then if we do go on to grit 5, we will also clean them before they move on. But I'm just giving everything a good rinse out here in the yard. And then we'll go through these quick and see how they're looking. It was still, like I said, it was still a little muddy in the barrel, but that's why you got to get all that previous grit out before you move them on that polish stage for sure. So depending on what else I do today, I might switch this out 2 or 3 more times. If I make a video, just boraxing is what we've been using for our cleaning stages. And you can see all the agates right here. And there's a piece of tiger's eye back there. So let me burn these inside and I will pick it back up in there. All right. Just to keep them wet, I'm running this drizzle in my sink here, but we have all sorts of good looking rocks in here. And like I said, this is a Christmas stone that I cut in half. It's got all sorts of cool colors going on. At least I think it's a Christmas stone. And this quartzy, jaspery looking thing did this pocket formed, and we didn't want to get any smaller, so we moved it on, but otherwise that's a cool rock. Here's a piece of chert. Here's another agate. Look at the bands on that. This is one we cut in half. And then there's just some cool rocks. Not everything in here is the greatest, but they sure do look neat. Some of these are experiment rocks too, just seeing how the different stuff we find. This is the other half of that Christmas rock I showed you a few seconds ago. When I cut it open, it had all these cool ass veins in it. And I was just cutting it open for funsies, and we just had to put it in the tumbler. So glad I did. Looks awesome. This rock, you probably can't, maybe you can tell in the video, but there's just a dent here, like a worry stone kind of. And it came that way, like that's the way I found it, and that's why I put it in here. It's just to see how it would tumble up, and if it'll get, you know, that worry stone smoothness just straight out of the tumbler for me. Here's the other half of that big agate. Such cool colors. Just a quartzy piece with a bunch of, I don't know, other stuff. Here's an agate that we found. Let me see. Why won't you focus? There's none of those Christmas stones. I like these. These are cool. We'll polish up neat. We got some clearish quartz in here. There's another one. There's a big one. Here's some of that Christmas stone with the veins. Here's an agate. Look at the bands on this. Look at that. Heck yeah. Is this an agate? Yes, sir. Oh, the cat is here to help. Hey, Jack. What you doing, buddy? So. Gonna make sure that I didn't. Oh, there's that piece of tiger's eye. Amethyst. Actually, that might be amethyst too. Don't know. But we're just going to go back into the tumbler barrel, add water, and then get it back on the tumbler for another about probably 24 hours. Like I said, it was still pretty gummy. And like I said, I like to make sure they're very, very clean before they go on to stage 4. And then again, if we do go to that 8,000 grit stage 5, which we definitely do not do for all of the rocks, but for some. So. We just use normal borax right from the grocery store. I ran to the dollar store one day and bought just a bunch of the packs of these scoops. So I have a different scoop for each grit. And then I have this one that's just lives in the borax box here. And then we do 1 tablespoon of borax per pound size of barrel. So this one's a 3-pound National Geographic tumbler barrel. And so we will just do 3 scoops of the borax, get the lid back on, and move it on. And then just make sure you got water in it. Just helps to clean out any crevices you might have of previous grit. All right. So this one's just gonna go on here. Just gonna hit the old start button. And this one should be good for, like I said, anywhere from a couple hours to a day for borax, especially after that first borax spin. So, and then we have other tumblers, 6 here total, all doing various stages. I have a notebook that I keep the notes of when everything's ready to go. So I will have this one ready. Don't remember what's in it. And then the red one and the Harbor Freight one behind it are both ready to, those are both stage 1 down there. We only use those 2 for stage 1. They tumble really slow, so we let them go a couple extra days on each stage. But, so I'll check back later.